Hey, everybody, welcome back to another fantastic edition of the His and Her Money Show, where we make it our business to help you take dominion over your money and your life. Thank you for tuning in to another great episode because you could be elsewhere, but you're here. And since you are here, we want you to know we're grateful to have your eyes and your ears because we do our best to bring you content that can add value to your life because we don't want to just entertain you. We want to equip you to become all that God has sent you to this earth to become. And I'm excited. And I know for sure that today's episode is going to aid us again on that journey because we have an incredible author who has shared some incredible advice in his new book. And it's a unique angle. I think we're all going to learn a great deal. So because I know we're all going to learn a great deal, get your pen, get your paper, or open up your notes app on your phone or your iPad and get ready to take some great notes because we're going to have quite the conversation. We're going to be talking with author Christopher Ullman, and he's written a brand new book called Four Billionaires and a Parking Attendant. I know. That's like, wait, four billionaires and a parking attendant? What's that about? Just trust me. You're going to want to know. You're going to want to stick around. So let me not delay this any further. Let me go get Christopher so we can have a fantastic discussion about what we can learn from the wealthy people of this world. Stay tuned. Hey, Christopher, welcome to the His and Her Money Show.
A lot. Thank you for having me. I am so happy and blessed to be here with you.
Man, we're so glad to have you here. We heard about your new book and we were like, oh, wait a minute. No. That's a conversation we have to have on the His and Her Money Show. But before we start talking about four billionaires and a parking attendant, people are being introduced to you for the first time right here and right now. So for them, would you mind saying hello and then kind of let them know a little bit about what you are all about?
Sure. Well, I'm really delighted to be here with your listeners and your viewers. What a blessing it is. I love your program, and I love the notion of equipping people and preparing them to take command of their financial lives and which really fuel the rest of their lives. So I'm excited to be here. So in a nutshell, I live in Washington, D.C., been here 36 years. I grew up in New York on Long Island, and I do corporate communications for a living. And I've worked on Capitol Hill in Congress. I've worked in the White House for the president. I worked at a major global investment firm for 18 years, running their global communications. And then 5 years ago, started my own boutique communications advisory firm. And that's what I'm doing today. And I have a handful of clients, some of whom are billionaires. And I'm married. I have 3 children. We have a cat, and I'm a big bicyclist. And interestingly, I am a 4-time international whistling champion, like that. So I am, like most people, I'm complex, and I have different parts of me. So hopefully give your listeners an idea of what they're dealing with here.
I love that, man. When I read that, I was like, wait, did I read that right? Oh, he's a whistling champion. Like I think you just said it right though. I'm complex, and sometimes in life we figure that we have to fit inside of a particular box. If I'm going to be a CPA, then I can only do X, Y, and Z. If I'm going to be a plumber, a union, a contractor, then I got to fit inside this box. What allowed you to work on Capitol Hill for a while, work with some of the wealthiest people for a long time, and still pursue sports cars, bicycling, whistling championships? What allowed you to say to yourself, I can be all these things? And what should we take away from that thought?
Well, we are all unique children of God. And once we're created, we are just set on a journey. And my father had this expression when I was growing up, and he said, the world is your oyster, meaning you can do whatever you want. And I really took it to heart. And I wanted to kind of be all I could be. And, you know, when I came to Washington, I kind of went from the minor leagues to the major leagues. And I was exposed to a lot of different circumstances and opportunities and people. And I wanted to embrace that and with gusto and like to have purpose in life. And I think that's such an important thing, is that God gave us gifts. I've actually developed this phrase I use with my children, which is when they're feeling insecure, I say, don't deny the world your wonderment. You are a child of God. You have gifts. Go and develop them and share them and learn. So there's a spirit of humility on one hand, because we want to be sponges and absorb information and knowledge and wisdom from the people around us, but we are unique at the same time. So we have to develop our who we are and then get out there and do your thing. And that can manifest itself in terms of your job, your volunteer work, your hobbies. Like you mentioned, the whistling and the biking. Like biking to me is about freedom. And that now that I'm 60 years old, about staying in shape too. But I love to get out there and just see the world. And then with the whistling, God gave me a talent, and it's my duty to do something with that talent, to develop it and to share it. And so I've won the international championship 4 times, but I don't compete anymore. But now what I do is I share my whistle with people. So I whistle happy birthday literally 650 times a year for friends and family and complete strangers. So those are like, so I think it's like life is this almost like blank canvas, and we have, God gave us the paint. We got to go paint. We got to go engage. And so that's kind of my philosophy.
I love it. Don't deny the world your wonderment. I'm keeping that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Christopher.
Oh,
Got to take
amen.
that.
No,
I got three
please
kids of my own,
spread it out.
and I got to spread that message. So, talk to me about
It,
the title. What do you mean when you put on the front of your new book, 4 billionaires and a parking lot? Excuse me, 4 billionaires and a
it.
parking attendant.
Yep. So, naming a book is always a very complex process. And I came up with this name. Actually, a friend helped me come up with this name because it really captures what the book is about. The book is about how to be successful, how to be your best. And we do this by learning from these amazing people that I've worked personally with for the past 35 years. Billionaires, governors, chairmen of companies, CEOs. I'm just so blessed to have been able to work with these people. And those are the big wigs. But there's also a parking attendant. And may I tell you about this really amazing man? So, so I work at this fancy investment firm called the Carlyle Group. They manage almost $400 billion. It's a global firm. And I ran the communications function there. So I would drive into the parking lot every day. And for 4 years, this young man parked my car. And he's a African American from Ethiopia, and he became an American citizen. And I actually went to his naturalization ceremony, which was an amazing experience. And if your listeners have never been, they must go and see someone become an American citizen. It's really amazing. So I would drive in, he'd park my car, and he was always happy, like literally every day, smile, optimistic, and happy. And then and it was always cold in the garage. It was always hot. And it was dark, but he's always happy. And then I get in the elevator and I go up 40 feet to the third floor, and there are only literally 3 billionaires, billionaire, billionaire, billionaire in these offices, and a whole bunch of other immensely wealthy people. And you know what? Maybe they're happy, maybe they're not. And this juxtaposition between the billionaires and the parking attendant was fascinating to me. And it reminded me that, and the lesson about, his name is Sala, the lesson about Sala is choose to be happy. That it's an attitude, and it's embracing your gifts and the opportunities in life and kind of managing the hardships. And one of the founders, one of those billionaires, says he's a billionaire. He said he doesn't know many happy rich people, which is just shocking to me. And it breaks my heart when I hear that. Because with all that money, you can do all these things for the world, and people are still not happy. But here's this young man who, if he made $35,000 a year, that would be a lot. And he was happy. And that touched my heart. It inspired me. And I wanted the readers to know that you don't have to be rich to be wise. That yes, I learned an immense amount from these billionaires and other bigwigs, but I also learned this incredibly important lesson from Sala, the parking attendant.
So you talk about in your book how, a lot of books are written by either people directly who achieved an immense amount of success and then they write a book about their journey, what they learned, or by someone who saw secondhand what someone did and wrote a book about them or studied that person and wrote a book about them. And sometimes it feels like, yeah, that's nice for them, but that's one in a million. That's a unicorn type situation. So sometimes when you read these books, they're like inspiring in one sense, but in another sense, they're like, I can never do that. Um, since you've been studying billionaires for 35 years, what do you think about that thought that might creep into people's minds? Like, okay, you're about to share some stuff about people who own private jets and people who can buy anything they want, but you know, is that something that I could really learn from being in the current life situation that I am in?
You brought up a really amazing point. On one hand, I think those books have value because you see someone, and many times they went from humble means and they're self-made and they created a product or a service and became billionaires. And that can be inspiring for people. So I respect that. And I think there's a market for it. But as you say, it can still be scary. If you're just like a regular normal human and there's this billionaire saying, wow, patting themselves on the back, this is how I did it. You might think, you know, that's just not, I'm not capable of that. And what's unique about my book is that like I'm a pretty normal guy, but I worked with, hand in glove, one on one with all of these bigwig billionaires. I saw what they did, what worked and what didn't. And then I said, well, can I apply that to my life? And I said, yeah, I can. And it's worked immensely well. It's actually changed the way I think and behave every single day. I mean, literally every day I employ lessons from this book on how to think and behave so that I can be my best. And this is a very important point is it's not about getting rich. I mean, if that's your goal, fine. But to me, it's about being my personal best or your listener's best, whatever that is. If you're a teacher and you're committed to your craft, don't you want to be the best you can be? Well, the lessons in here, and this is really cool, is if I said to you, hey, you'll be successful if you can run the Boston Marathon in 3 hours and 30 minutes. Most people would say, oh my God, that's not possible. And I'd say, that's not what I'm saying. That the lessons in here are so actionable. It's like basic stuff that people just don't do. I mean, it blows me away. So in each book, pardon me, each lesson is based on an anecdote, the story that people can relate to. And then you say, I could easily do that. But what it requires is having really having like humility, meaning being open to these ideas, and then being disciplined in putting them into practice. So I think that's what I'm real excited about is what's different about this book is that this stuff is based on anecdotes that I personally observed and they're actionable. You don't have to go run the Boston Marathon to be able to do these things.
So, you had a conversation with a billionaire and he said, or she said, out of their mouth, I don't know any happy rich people. Some people might hear that and they're like, well, you know what? Yeah, YOLO. You only live once. I'm not finna pursue wealth and investing and forget all that. I'm about to do my thing. I'm curious, what did you do personally with that statement that person made to you? How did you internalize it? Where did your mind go? And what type of behaviors ensued as a result of you having that conversation with that billionaire that day?
Yeah, when a billionaire says, I don't know many happy rich people, I mean, it breaks your heart just because you have all these resources. I mean, when you think about life day in and day out, money plays a big role in your housing, your food, your clothing, your education, childcare, elder care. Rich people don't worry about any of those things. So the money has takes away this huge concern that the typical person has day in and day out. And nonetheless, they're not happy. And I say what's missing, I think, is faith in God, that because God has commanded us to use our gifts to make the world a better place. It's love God, love your neighbor, love God, love your neighbor. And if you don't have to worry about housing and food and clothing and shelter and all that kind of stuff, but you've got all this money, then you need to flip it and think outside of yourself and what is around me and where are the needs, and then be very strategic about how you kind of dive in to help. Because I've had people say to me, well, if you're rich, it's just you can just give it away. And I say that's just not the way it works. When you to become rich, you need to work incredibly hard and then be very strategic about that process. So if you're going to give the money away, you don't want to just write random checks to people. You actually want to make sure you're giving money to people who can use it effectively. So it's a problem, a good problem, but a problem to give the money away effectively. But that's really not the point. The point is that if you have it, you've got to employ that money in a way that will make the world around you. It doesn't have to be the whole world, but even your little pond a lot better. Like I'll give you an example. One of the billionaires in the book is one of the founders of the Carlyle Group, and his name's Bill Conway. He made a personal investment 20 years ago, just exited that investment, and I estimate he netted after taxes $200 million. And I said, Bill, congratulations. And he said, well, now I need to figure out how to give it away. It's a problem, good problem, but a problem nonetheless. Anyway, so what Bill used to roam the halls at work, and this is amazing. I'm gonna show you one of these things. He used to give out gift cards to employees at our firm, and if they promised to give them to homeless people. So he would literally walk around the office with hundreds of gift cards, either like Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts, and he'd say, if you promise to give these to homeless people, I will give you 10, 50, 100, I don't care, as long as you do something good with it. So he used to be scared of homeless people because, we're told that they're scary and dirty and violent. But then he learned their names. One man's name was Lorenzo, and he got to know that person, and now they're a human. They're not just some homeless person. They're actually a human with a name. He then gave money to a homeless shelter that helps people like Lorenzo. That was $1,000. And then he gave him $10 million to help these people. And then he's walking around giving out the cards. And so that has had a huge impact on me, just reminding me you don't have to be a billionaire to think of the people around you and who we giving back to. So that's one of the most important lessons in the book is, to see a wealthy person say, yeah, I got $200 million that I didn't have yesterday, but my problem is giving it away. That's what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to go give that money away. And that is inspiring. I don't give away hundreds of millions of dollars, like, 5,000 here, 10,000 there, that's, um, but that's my job now. I got to figure out how to use these God-given resources well. And I learned that from a billionaire.
So it sounds like generosity is a huge characteristic that you took away from studying these billionaires. Some people, like, they listen to our content, they may be on a financial journey, whether they're getting out of debt or trying to save or trying to invest for the future. And they're like, man, where am I going to find, this extra money to give away, whether it's homeless or some other means. So for you, when you were digesting this and you were trying to employ it and apply it to your life, like, how did you get creative with, okay, I can't, like you just said, I don't have $200 million to give away. How did you look at your own budget and say, you know what, I can do this or I can do that? How can people kind of imply it at their level?
Another thing I learned that right along these lines is to focus your giving, to give bigger gifts to fewer people or organizations so that each of those gifts can have a bigger impact. So for example, during COVID, my wife and I were just very sad that many people were unemployed. So we found several people who were important to us, like the woman who cuts my hair. I mean, like 80% of her business dried up. So we just gave them money and said, I'm going to give this money to you, this individual human that's going to help you get you over the hump here. And so it's very targeted. So I think that's good. And I think people should find things that align with their values and give the biggest gift they can to that. Don't spread it too thinly because you want to be able to, you're better off being the big fish in the small pond than the small fish in the big pond. You want to be able to move the needle if you can. And so that's how we now give. We found a couple of organizations that were really important to us, particularly um, Christian schools that serve inner city youth, where the public schools are just not up to par. And we've really focused our giving both in Washington, D.C. and in Charlotte. There are a couple of schools that we really admire that are doing great work. And I feel like we're impacting real humans in a special way.
Nice. So now generosity was the first key you gave us. What would be another key that you took away from studying 35 years worth of evidence, being around the ultra wealthy that we could use to make our lives better?
Oh my gosh, there are some great ones. Um, this really important one. It's in each lesson has a little pithy title. This one's called "Think Like Your Successor Every Day." You say, what the heck does that mean? I don't know who my successor is. How can I think like someone I don't know? But this lesson is really about being open-minded so that you can be your best. So I'll give you an example. So I have a job and say I either quit, I am fired, or I die. Someone else is going to take that job, in a week, a month, or whatever. And they're going to sit in my same desk and look at my same computer, and they're going to look at everything that I did in my time there. And they're going to say, this was brilliant. This was good. This was marginal. And this was crazy. And they're going to get rid of the crazy stuff. They're probably going to get rid of the marginal stuff, and they're going to focus on the good and the great. Well, why should I wait for my successor to make those decisions? I should be making those decisions. And you say, well, how do I do that? Well, every day when you come to work, and this is one of the challenges of life, it's also a good thing, but it's a challenge in that today is like yesterday, and tomorrow is going to be like today. Meaning there's this kind of constancy and this consistency, and what I did yesterday, I'm going to do today, and what I do today, I'm going to do tomorrow. And we need to take these fresh looks at everything we're doing. But you have to be humble and you have to be open minded. And if you're a manager, you have to be able to go to your team and you say, I want real feedback from you, not this happy stuff that just tells the boss what he or she wants to hear. And then when you get real feedback from people, you can get rid of the crazy stuff. You can get rid of the marginal stuff or move marginal into good and then good into great. So it's a humility. I mean, I've met so many people in my 36 years working that they're just not interested in other people's views. This is the way they do it, and that's the way they're going to keep doing it. But I have found that if you have an open mind and an open heart, and you actively seek guidance and wisdom and information from smart people around you, it's like rocket fuel in your life, in your career. It's just amazing. So that lesson, think like your successor every day, is like radically changed my life. Oh my gosh.
Love that. And another one that stood out to me was you taught us in the book that we should become like solution oriented. Like we should do our best to pivot to solution mode as often as we can. Can you unpack that a little bit?
Oh yeah. Well, when we are confronted with things we don't like, we can focus on the negative. And it's so easy to just say, this bad thing happened. And then it's like getting stuck in mud and you complain and you fixate on the negative. Yeah. And I'm not saying people shouldn't do that at all, but it should be for like 5 seconds. Yeah. Life's not fair. Let's get on with it and let's move. So I'll give you this wild example in the book where David Rubenstein, he's one of the billionaires. He's Jewish, and he bought the sacred Torah, which is the first five books of the Old Testament. And the rabbi who sold him these said that these were the literal document. The Torah was in a concentration camp during World War II. So David said, "Wow, that's historic that it survived. Let's repair it, and then we'll give it to this very prominent synagogue in New York City." So we did all that. Then, like a few months later, we find out it's a total fraud, like total lie, where the rabbis made it up. And when I went to tell David this, I mean, literally, he was upset for like 5 seconds. He's like, "What?" And then boom, pivots to solution mode. He literally he's in his chair. He pivots around, picks up the phone. He calls the Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington and says, "I need the best expert in the world on Torahs." They get him on the phone. David said, "This is what happened. I need you to find me two Torahs that are from the Holocaust era, and we're going to go solve this problem." And, within, let's say, 3 to 4 months, the problem was solved because David had a long to-do list. He's a busy man. He's the busiest human on the planet. And rather than spending time kind of wallowing in self-pity or like gnashing his teeth or rubbing his hands about, how life is unfair, he's like, "No, we're not going to do that. We're going to pivot to solution mode and go solve this problem and then move on to the next item on the checklist." And this happened with me, where he found out that I was considering another job, and he called me up and said, "I heard you're talking to Goldman Sachs about a job." And I was worried he would fire me on the spot. And instead, he said, "These are the 5 reasons you would talk to Goldman about a job: money, the stature, new opportunity, the network." And I said, "Yeah, those are the reasons." And I tried to explain it. And he's like, "I don't want to talk about it." He said, "I don't want you to leave. What if we did these 3 things? We'll make you a partner. We'll give you a bigger bonus." And I said, "Well, that'd be great." And he said, "I'll call you back in 15 minutes. Calls back in 15 minutes. He said, "I've talked to the other founders. These things are done. Make Goldman go away." And I agreed. And he said, "Good. Having a good day." Many people, if not most, when they heard that I was talking with another company about a job, would have called me up and said, "You betrayed me. I can't trust you anymore. I thought we were friends. I was your mentor, and this is what you do to me." He didn't do any of those things because he actually treated me like an adult. It made sense for me to take that phone call with Goldman, but he didn't want me to leave. So this is an economic transaction. So that is an amazing. So it pivoted quickly to solution rather than being caught up in this emotion saying, "You did this to me." He didn't do that. He just said, "I want you to stay. I like you. I can understand why you talk to them. And I'm going to do this to sweeten the pot. What do you think?" And I said, "I like it. Done. Problem solved. On to the next item." So if your listeners or viewers are getting like, if they focus on the wrong things, it drags them into off the path that they want to be on. They've got things to do. They've got goals and objectives and dreams, and don't get distracted by these things that you can solve pretty readily.
Every strategy that you have in your book is something that you learned and then lived out. What was a result of you personally, your life? How did it change? How did it improve? Because you took the time to look at what they were doing and try to do it at your level.
Wow. So here, that's a great question. So, because that's really at the core of this, I saw it and then I said, "Aha, if they can do it, heck, I should be doing that too." Well, like here's a basic example, and I can give you a few others too. But when I would be driving along, and if someone was tailgating me or just being a jerk or cut me off or something like that, I would respond rudely to them. And you can imagine. And, that's stupid and dangerous and completely unproductive, but it's an emotional response. So I was able to say that I have to stop doing that because it's dangerous. You're not going to solve a problem by tailgating someone who just pissed you off, basically. So I just say, fine. If someone cut me off, fine. I'm just not going to worry about it. And I stay focused on what's important to me instead of that. Now, I'll give you kind of a high stakes example. There was a reporter, like one of the most famous reporters in the United States, works at a major, major publication, who was upset about something. And I thought he was like 95% wrong and 5% right. And rather than get into this fight with him, this emotional battle just to prove I was right, I just said, listen, we have a disagreement. I understand where you're coming from. Let's figure out how to solve this problem and then let's move on. In the past, I would have fought tooth and nail to prove I was right. But that's really not productive because all that effort just damages the relationship. And then again, it takes you off the path you want to be on. And that doesn't, some of your listeners might be saying, well, you need to stand on principle. And I generally agree with that, but you have to kind of balance your emotion with the logic and the facts and principle with what are you actually trying to achieve in life? And you want to stay as focused as possible. I mean, if someone does something overtly unethical or illegal, yes, you might have to fight it out. I appreciate that. But it's so easy to get distracted by letting our emotions rule us. Um, so I'm much more chill as a result of seeing these people in action who are so able to stay focused on their goals and not letting these stupid, dangly, shiny things off the side distract them.
Yeah, I love that. I wonder because a lot of people listening are married, and this could be a journey that you go on, but you don't want to go on it without your significant other kind of going on the journey with you. So as you were like, having all these epiphanies from being around these people, like how are you discussing it with your wife, and did you take her on the journey, and what was her response? Help those that are of us that are married because this is super intriguing, and I love how you do make the book super actionable. Like we could take these one at a time and try to drill them into ourselves. But how did you approach this with your wife, and did she go with you?
Oh yeah. So this is kind of funny. My wife's name is Chris also. So some people call us
Chris
the
and
Chris's.
Chris.
Chris and Chris. So yeah, so we're a team on the journey. There's the ring, and she's a wonderful human, a wonderful mom, a wonderful wife, and we we're in this together. So we talk about everything. She heard all the stories before they went in the book. She read the book. She gave me good feedback, and um, in terms of like even strengthening our marriage, the last point we were just talking about is like focusing on what's important. I just had a young person who's been married for 1 year say to me, what's your best marriage advice? And I said, I have two pieces. One is always put your spouse first. And the other thing is focus on what's important and don't let the stupid things like fill your mind and get you angry. And she doesn't do this and she said she was going to do that. And like, but you have to flip it to what is important. So the lessons in here have been great for our marriage too. I think it's helped me be a better husband. I mean, there are so many of them. Um, like for example, there's a lesson there about paying off your mortgage, and that requires a serious commitment from the husband and wife to figure out how to do that because it requires focus, having that goal in the first place, and then mapping out a pathway that actually get you there, a lot of which requires financial sacrifice and delayed gratification and the like. So that was the advice from actually all three of the Carlyle founders said, you should pay off your mortgage.
See,
It
see,
will
his
be
and
the
her money
sucks.
family. We've been telling y'all for 8 years to pay off your house, and now the billionaires have backed us up. Come on, I love, man. Listen, I want to do a backflip when I saw that. You know what I mean? Because
Oh,
that's something
oh,
we've been
good.
championing this whole time. We've been mortgage free for 5 years now, and we try
Oh,
to
that is
tell the
amazing.
world to make it their reality too. And now, guys, not only did Tyler and Ty tell you, not only did Christopher Ullman tell you, but it's straight from the billionaires' mouths themselves. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for this. Man, I'm telling y'all need this book. It's called Four Billionaires and a Parking Attendant. Christopher, do us a favor. Tell us a little bit more about what we'll find in the pages of your new book and let everybody know where they can pick up their copy.
Great. So this is about what's in this book is really about how to be your best, how to be successful. That's why the subtitle is Success Strategies of the Wealthy, Powerful, and Just Plain Wise. So at its core, if you want to be your best, if you want to be successful, however you define it, that's what's in there. And then what we'll learn in there are these three important things about humility and about discipline and about drive. So like and then and that's kind of the how you do it. So because if you have drive, you have this goal, and you are humble because you're willing to absorb information, and you are disciplined in how you approach it every day, then all these 50 lessons. So then the what is these 50 lessons from these 15 people, the 14 bigwigs and the parking attendant, that are very specific about looking at purpose and innovation, humility, building bridges with people who don't look like you or think like you. And so those lessons are, if you wrap them up with this discipline and humility and drive, will help you get to that success. That's really at its core what it's about.
And you did a fantastic job with this book, Christopher. Everybody, we have a link to Christopher's new book in the show notes of this episode. If you're watching us on YouTube, look right in the description box under the video, click the link, get the book, and start applying. Don't just take what is written there as entertainment. Take it as a tool to help you get to the place that God has called you to get to. Christopher, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on the His and Her Money Show and share all this great wisdom with us today.
Well, it's been a blessing, Tal. Thank you for having me, and I wish you much success, continued success with your show, because this is exactly the spirit and I think what people need to hear to be their best.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another fantastic edition of the His and Her Money Show is in the books. Make sure you get your copy of Four Billionaires and a Parking Attendant. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. And I promise you, you'll be able to do what's inside this book. I'm already doing what's inside this book, and I will continue to try to apply these one by one, brick by brick, because I want to get all that God has for me to get. And I want that for you too. Well, that's all we got for this time, guys. It's been great. Until next time, peace.